Welcome to Hermann Oak Leather. We have been tanning leather for 125 years through 4 generations. This video is designed to help explain how leather is made, both ours and other types. Our leather is still made the old-fashioned way, with tannings that come from tree bark. This is called vegetable tanning, which has certain properties still valued by many people around the world for its beauty and workability. We hope you will find this interesting, and everyone in our company welcomes you to join us on our tour.
Tanning is a chemical process that dates back to the dawn of human history. It no doubt preceded metalworking because of leather's unique ability to provide so many of life's needs: shelter, clothing, and shoes, farming by pulling a plow, and transportation in riding a horse. The chemistry is very complex, has never been fully explained, yet was probably discovered by accident and then refined through trial and error over thousands of years. The tanning process you will see here is one of the oldest tannages, called vegetable tanning, as it uses the tannins from organic matter like tree bark, leaves, and nuts. While this tannage used to be the predominant tannage around the world, it is now a specialty tannage. Shoes, clothing, and upholstery have switched over the past 100 years to chrome tanning, which uses the metal chromium, takes a much shorter time, and is less costly to make. The vegetable tannages you will see here, however, still retain their ability to mold, carve, provide firmness, and are compatible with skin, which are fundamental to their use in the markets for the horse, pet, orthopedic, and craft industries. A century ago, this vegetable tannage used to take up to a year for each hide. Nowadays, it still takes between 1 and 3 months. Raw hides, if left wet, will rot. If raw hides are dried, they will not rot, yet are no longer flexible and have limited use. Tanning is simply a method of combining another substance, called tannin, with the hide fiber to allow the resultant leather to be dried, yet remain flexible. The chemical process of getting there, however, is very involved, and this DVD will help explain why. Hides are removed from the cattle at the packing plant, washed, fleshed to remove fat, trimmed, then the water removed in a donut-shaped raceway, using a saturated salt brine solution. They are then sorted for gender, weight, and brands. Our industry uses the heavier weighted portion of the native or non-branded male steer sides, or about 1% of the available cattle hides of the U.S. The U.S. produces about 30 million hides a year from a cattle population of around 100 million. You may notice on this cured hide some of the natural wrinkles and draw which comes from the growth and the breed of the animal. Tanners attempt to minimize the appearance of these, yet they can never be fully corrected. The first operation the tanner performs is to soak the hide back to its original water content by removing the salt. The hair is then removed with lime and sulfide, forming a lye-type solution to break down the hair. The lime has the additional benefit of plumping the fibers by raising the pH, opening the fibers so they accept the later tannins. This is the first major chemical process which needs stringent quality controls for pH, temperature, and alkalinity. The limed hides are fleshed to remove excess fatty tissue. The limed hides are then trimmed, weighed, and graded for both internal quality control and for reporting back to hide suppliers. They are then sorted into the various types of leathers. Certain leathers are now split on a band knife splitter to make them level. This splitting process may be repeated later in the tanning process as well as in the finished dry state. Some tanners also use shaving machines to make the leather level. The lime is now removed from the hides, gradually lowering the pH back to neutral. The hides are then baited or cleaned using an enzyme which was first developed for the tanning industry and later used in clothing detergent. When the hides come out of these paddles, they can be dried to make rawhide dog bones or rawhide stamping pallets. This is the second major chemical process, which is closely controlled for pH and temperature. The chemistry in tanning is like building a house, where the foundation is most important and every level is dependent on the previous one to ensure the highest quality. The hides are now placed into the tanning solution, which is similar to coffee. Here the tannin molecules gradually penetrate the hide fibers. It is here that the carving and molding characteristics of the leather are set. This is the major chemical process in tanning, taking up to 6 weeks for vegetable tanning. The process must be tightly controlled on a daily basis for acidity, pH, tannin strength, and purity. Chrome tanning does not use this step, but is done instead in a large drum like you will see later, and takes less than a day. The leather is pulled from the first day in the tan yard to check its progress, and to make sure that the color and astringency of the yard are correct. You will notice that each hide has been cut into 2 sides at this point. Tanners will cut their hides at different places in the process. While most shoe and specialty plants cut into sides, sole leather plants will cut bends and double shoulders, and upholstery plants will leave as whole hides. This is how the vegetable tanning extract comes to the tannery. It is made from tree bark that is soaked in hot water to extract the tannins, then spray dried just like coffee. Testing incoming chemicals is one of the quality control tests performed at the tannery. The final chemical process is done in large rotating drums or mills. Here the leather is washed, bleached, dyed if required, and fat liquored with special oils to penetrate and bind to the fibers. These are the types of drums that are used for chrome tanning, as mentioned earlier. The wet leather is now wrung on a machine with a felt-covered roller, very much like Grandma used to use for her clothing. The damp leather is now smoothed out on a setting machine, a process similar to boning, or ironing without heat. This also takes out any stretch from the leather. The leather is now dried on frames in temperature and humidity controlled rooms over 3 days. Harness leather is the original water-resistant leather the tannery made to use in plow, wagon, and buggy harness. It is stuffed with heavy beef tallows in this drum, the process being little changed since the tannery was started. This harness has so much tallow in it that it will not go through a modern machine, and must still be hand set to smooth it out. You can see the excess tallow on the walls. This hand-setting portion of this process is the same as that used before machines and electricity were invented. The harness leather will then take over a week to dry. Tanners have always relied on a good water supply and are usually located near a river or stream. Our water supply nowadays must be heated to consistent temperature, softened, and controlled to the correct pH. A tannery like this will use over 100,000 gallons of water a day. Once used, it must be cleaned in a wastewater treatment plant before being returned to the river. This water treatment is a major cost of making leather for all modern leather tanneries. A tanner in the U.S. must submit close to 50 reports a year to the various government agencies to ensure compliance with all regulations. We pride ourselves in our proactive approach to keeping our environment clean and our workplace safe. The leather is now dry and sent to the finishing department, where Hermann Oak trims the leather to remove the unusable edges. Finished leather will go through a large press numerous times to lay it flat and smooth the grain even more. Leather can also be embossed with a pattern in this press. In the old days, tanners used to sell tannery run, which meant a mix of whatever hides come from the packer. Nowadays, the leather is sorted into stacks of different grades and thicknesses, and sold as specific grades. At Hermann Oak, leather is sold either by individual grade or by tannery run, which means 25% A, 50% B, and 25% C grades, with no D, X, or brands. We keep an inventory of all base leathers to make sure we can always ship every customer. Once an order is placed, the leather is selected specifically for that customer, based on type of leather, thickness, and mix of grades. Leathers that require exact thickness will be run through a dry splitting machine. This splitting machine is the most highly calibrated machine in a tannery, similar to that of a stitch-and-all sewing machine. It should always be remembered that in comparing two leathers of similar thickness, the dry split leather will be weaker than the non-split leather because the fiber bundles have been disturbed. The grain layer is for looks, the fiber layer is for strength. The splitting operator regularly calibrates his gauge on a standardized metal block. For leathers that require additional dyeing or a top coat of acrylic, polyurethane, or pigment, these can be applied in a spray operation. For more specialized applications, hand spraying can be used. Other specialized processes can be applied by hand, an old yet time-tested method that is still best for custom work. When the leather is ready for shipment, it will go through the third and final grading station, and is checked for overall quality and whether it meets the customer's specifications. The leather is then measured and stamped with the square footage. The measuring machine must be calibrated numerous times throughout the day with the round black disc to ensure accuracy. Finally, the leather is rolled or palletized, loaded on trucks, and sent on its way. The primary emphasis in a tannery is on quality control. A tannery uses over 100 chemicals in close to 1,000 steps. Here you see some of the daily checks being performed on the tan yard liquors. Standardized process sheets are used to perform all chemical processes, all steps being recorded and signed. The goal of the tannery is to provide the best possible consistency in the leather. Grading of the leather is based on the intended use of the leather, and is usually standardized by type of leather. In general, the prime or butt area is the most important part of the side and is graded the most heavily, followed by the shoulder and then the belly. For skirting leather, the prime butt area, where the saddle seat is cut, is the most important. For tooling and holster leather, the prime butt area is still most important, yet the shoulder is also important for cutting parts. For harness and rein leather, the center section for cutting traces and reins is graded equally throughout the side. The hide defects that are graded are anything that cuts the grain or flesh, and include open scratches, holes, brands, open insect damage, warts, sores, tannery damage, manure ball damage, or butcher scores on the flesh. No hide is perfect, and even A grades have a few defects. Defects in the prime count more than in other areas. The more the defects, or the more severe they are, the lower the grade. Factors that are considered usual to most hides are not graded unless excessive, such as healed scratches or insect bites. Fat wrinkles, neck wrinkles, growth draw, and minor discoloration. Vegetable leather is usually sold in its naked form, unlike most shoe and upholstery leather that is sanded and heavily painted. The unfinished nature of vegetable leather shows both the natural beauty of the leather as well as its imperfections. It is this natural beauty which is an integral part of the products which you make. We thank you for taking this tour of Hermann Oak Leather and hope it's been informative, educational, and entertaining.